is Professor David Weiss speaking on behalf of the Institute for Dispute Resolution and Connecting Bridges and Borders program at New Jersey City University. Today, via Zoom, we're going to have a discussion with a friend and colleague of mine from Reykjavik, Iceland, Arnar. He focuses on crisis management with his consulting firm called Moments, and it's a really important word, I believe, that we can all sort of resonate with in today's world. And we're going to have a discussion about how he uses his consulting practice from Iceland to assist many types of companies, both large and small, using a certain paradigm that he will discuss with us. He will also give us a little bit of insight from the prism of Iceland, which has a long history, both in terms of historical perspectives of being a country that is gone through its own isolations, irrespective of pandemics, just because of its its geographical location. Arnar, it's good to hear from you. How are you today?
Thank you, David. I am good. And besides all, as what is happening in the world, but I am actually experiencing very different environment, like the landscape, the conversations with the clients, with my colleagues, friends, and family. And there is not that we decided to do it, or there is a different approach to everything. I see from my environment that everything has calmed down. So before this world crisis came, and we starting to realize, okay, we have to find out what does this all mean. Everything was on a fast pace. We had control, and the control was the ideas we wanted to share, and the businesses we wanted to make, or this to grow, and so on and so on. Everything was focused on providing something to someone and have a benefit from it, financial benefit or other kind of benefit. And all of a sudden we are just vulnerable, and it's just us. Like we are in the same place like our ancestors were, Reykjavik. We look at the ocean and we say, okay, they came all this way and they had nothing. We have all this technology, we have all these resources, these buildings, just what we have made as a society, but yet we are not able to stop what is entering our country. No, we were not doing it early enough, at least. Or I would say we thought we had control, because that's the mindset of us, that's an
interesting comment that you make about you thought you had control. Can you, just for those that may not be so much familiar with Iceland, can you give a little bit of understanding of, first of all, what's the population of Iceland?
There are about 4,000.
And where's most of that population centered?
It's in Reykjavik, 2/3 in Reykjavik.
Wow.
And having a control means we had a good flow. Mm-hmm. So society was running well, in a sense. Not everyone at the same level, when it comes to lifestyles or what they were earning, or not in that sense. It's just there was a good flow, and we had people coming, many people coming, wanting to see our country or listen to our speeches about our solutions, which we have created, whatever, and we have produced so much. There's a lot of innovation been going on in Iceland.
It's interesting you use the word innovation. So let me ask two interesting questions that I have for you. Is you talk about this flow. If we're if we look at or explore, for example, before the credit crisis of 2008. How did Icelandic citizens sort of address the post-credit crisis, as well as how has it sort of viewed the investment from the state level in innovation, even before the credit crisis and then post the credit crisis?
Before the crisis, the credit crisis, we saw people in charge in the banks as rulers. They were the kings. Everyone, if you saw on the news someone making a deal, and we knew, wow, they know it all. They have it all. We had huge belief in few individuals or companies. Like they had, if they got an idea, it was a cash cow. It was just going to they were making fortunes. And it was interesting. And you ask yourself, how did they do this? And then we figured it out, okay, it wasn't really truth. It wasn't reality. It was just focus, focus. They had made it up, or designed something that was looked so good on papers that it had to be fantastic, and lasting. But coming from that, there was anguish. There was a bit of anger in us. We wanted to get resolution. Why did they tell us this was so great and it wasn't? And now I have to deal with it. My family cannot have food. Or it was like we were looking at each other and thinking, okay, we also put us there. We were investing in cars. We were buying stuff. We were just on the flow. It was not only the greed of being rich, the thought of being rich or having a bigger house. It was also we did it. We traveled. We just invested whatever it was. It had nothing to do with. We didn't have any sense of what was the benefit of it. Actually, it was just because it was better than the next guy had. Yeah, it was like this inner conflict of I must be better than him or her or so on. And yeah,
and looking at that.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now
and sort of looking at that lesson, we'll call it a lesson. What did the Icelandic people do, learning from that lesson of before the credit crisis, and then growing what I understood, and I've actually been one of those people who have gone to Iceland several times through the pivoting of creating really this up until now this amazing marketing and public relations campaign of coming to Iceland through tourism on the way to mainland Europe. Can you give us a sense of before, of course, now the last month or two, what were some of the things that were being done differently that were the lessons being learned from the credit crisis? And the reason I ask this question is that then we can look at now, where we are today, so we can look at sort of three different paradigms using Iceland as a case study.
It's a great question, and it came to my mind now that we were dealing with, there was an ego battle. We were driving forward with the ego in the front, in the steering wheel before 2008, like before this financial crisis. Then we became like more connected to Earth. We started just realizing, okay, we have to walk the grounds and let's stop blaming each other, find a new way to make the society becomes a good society again, and help those in need. And yes, we wanted to get a resolution. We wanted to find there were some people who had to pay for it, go to jail.
And its positive impact, both in terms of the economy of Iceland, but also being sensitive to its environment within Iceland, because it's really an untamed environment, as I've experienced. And for those who are listening today, maybe you can discuss a little bit about that untamed environment and the balance of some of the challenges that were being considered as tourism started to really increase before the pandemic.
Yes. This was again, we had another foundation. Suddenly we had something to keep our hands on. People were coming into Iceland asking to get to see our beautiful country. But what kicked in was there was a conflict in a way. We got to the point where we were not able to build up the infrastructure as fast as the people coming. So there was more people coming in than we were ready for. And that's already been, I would say, in many cases, we have been upgrading our infrastructure. We've done well with that. But if you look at the top locations on the south coast of Iceland, for example, there's a beautiful beach, Black Sand Beach is it called, one of the most popular beaches you can go to. Let's imagine Iceland as it is. Look at the Iceland as it is. It's windy here sometimes. It's bad weather. It's terrifying. You're walking and you're suddenly in a snowstorm in the winters, but then comes the sun and then it goes away. Okay, that's what's happening in Iceland regularly. But at this beach is a beautiful restaurant. And if you go into the restaurant, what does it cost to get a good soup or a slice of a pie or whatever they have? Yeah, it is for so many expensive. They say, oh, it's very expensive. This is very expensive. And there was a battle between, okay, no, it's just what it needs to be at this price. But being an Icelander, I know it was the greed kicked in. You can feel it, the emotion of I want to have a benefit from this tourism, which is like it's growing fast, and everyone wanted to have a piece of the pie. Yeah. So
it's a little bit like the bankers of 2007 in the sense that the environment now became the population became the bankers.
Yeah, and we thought we had it all. Okay, people are still coming. The growth declined a little bit, but there was still growth, and there was the revenue. The money was flowing in, and there's so many hotels been built over the last years in Iceland. Like I would just every corner you walk in the Reykjavik is a new hotel, and they're good hotel and providing good services and everything. But what happened now, just this point, like last month, we've seen this fade out. It's gone. It's just like we were stopped. And so our focus on this new flow of people and revenue, it's stopped. So we have a new kind of crisis we have to deal with. And like everyone would say today, that people, if you don't get people flying into your country, what do you have? And that's the new question which we have, the biggest question.
Being somewhat Icelandic people, and I met so many wonderful people on my journeys there, because they're I think it's in their DNA. They're so close to the ground, the ecosystem of not only historically and their ancestors, but the topography being so dramatic in many ways, from the volcanoes to the black sand beaches to the glaciers. How do you sort of vision now, looking in the present tense, how are Icelanders, are they looking outwards again, or are they sort of looking back inwards, how it can become self-sustaining while we go through this new reality of what seems to be not only a pandemic for a virus, but also what now is being called a pandemic economics, which is a result of the virus. How are Icelanders handling this? And maybe it's a good way to segue into some of the things that you do through Moments, and maybe you can give us some of the I know you may not be able to mention the large companies that you work with, but certainly you can give us an understanding of what you do with these companies through your workshops, your seminars, in order to address these challenges, both organizationally with inside the company, and then externally how they position themselves as an Icelandic company to the economy locally and also to the global economy.
Yeah. Now we have to stop now. We have to stop for a while as people, individuals, and we are staying in our houses. Like the businesses are now have 100 offices, one building before, now there's hundreds. We are all realizing that we are responsible for our actions. Yes, what we do on a daily basis today from now. And what is happening in the industries which I work with, not only relating to IT or innovation, but in offices which are providing services which are not so visible, but people are having meetings in the mornings, for example, where they're sharing new thoughts or sharing their feelings, sharing their projects, what they are doing on daily basis, and they're looking at their company from that side, from their home, and saying, hey, I'm an individual and I have something to bring into the table. I am able to do this from home. It's very difficult for many, but they are more open, vulnerable again. But at the same time, the companies are saying, take a walk if you can. Be with your children when you can. Like, connect yourself again. So they're like, I see there's energy growing also, not only fear or they're not. We're not looking at our lives as it's going away, you know. But we are realizing we will have to be more on a personal note, like more emotional, and we have to enable ourselves as participants in the organizations, you know, share new ideas. We're getting to be heard, because when you're a part of the herd, you come into a building, you get lost. Sometimes people are wandering the floors, and it is one of many. But when there's a meeting, or like a virtual meeting, or like a remote meeting, you have the chance of being heard, and everyone have to listen to your voice when you speak, because not everyone can talk at the same time. So I see like there's more listening, there's more awareness about who is part of my team, who is closest to me. So you're choosing allies also. Who do you want to be most connected to right now? And you're seeing where are your strong ones, where are your weak ones, and it will take I would say it takes many weeks, or it may take 2 months to see who are the strongest ones. So the strongest ones will keep on fighting, you know, rowing like we did. If you connect it to the Icelandic history, when they went to the ocean, they went fishing. They knew they could maybe die. It was very bad at the sea, but they did it because someone had to do it. So we must not give up. And that there's a different, the drive is no longer, I must provide something, and if it doesn't work, it will be okay because I will just get another idea. We just have constantly to be on the move here, stay strong in our minds, calm, and that's what happens. People are a little bit lost. So many are lost. They do not see how they can function in this new society as it is today. And you
raise something in this comments that I think are really important, and the one that resonates very, very much to me is about the idea of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And normally the word vulnerability, at least in today's world, has denoted some sort of negative connotation. Mm-hmm. And yet when you speak about vulnerability, we can turn it around to make it a much more positive attribute about who we are as human beings.
Yeah.
But what we need is time. Mm-hmm. And I heard you say that as well, that by creating more time allows that vulnerability to become something very positive. Mm-hmm. And what I'm hearing you say is that perhaps one of the things that we can, perhaps as a human society and a modern society that is really focused on time being tied to production mm-hmm. and efficiency. Mm-hmm. It may talk about creativity, but it really doesn't allow a lot of room for creativity because creativity appears to need time. Mm-hmm. And one of the lessons I'm taking from this conversation that I'm having with you is that vulnerability could equal time, which could equal creativity.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially if we allow ourselves to be more open about not only what our fears are, but also how we can manage and help each other through those fears.
Yes.
And in doing so, perhaps create some creativity and innovation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. And when you, if you're a parent in Iceland today, you go home after work days and you try to get the kids through study, and then they go to bed after food, after dinner. And now you either are in the position you cannot be with your children because you have something which you cannot share with them. You do not want to share it with them, this disease, this virus, but you have all this, you really can't wait to get out of this situation which you are dealing with today. Or you're in the position of you have your kids the whole time, and rather than being stressed about going somewhere, you just, I can imagine there's a different vibe in many homes than it was. And in Iceland, not everyone knows this. There's been a competition. There's I think it's the 5th till the 9th grade. You have like young children, young kids. They're competing in a contest, innovational contest.
Really? Tell us about that. Yeah. What's the competition about?
They are able to, they get the framework, they get the guidelines, which are then taught to them and explained to them what it means to have an idea. What kind of idea can you put on a table and or draw it or write it, or how would you do it? And they are able to take the time into it. And it's not about finding the how to save the world idea, but I honestly, I was surprised when I saw this, since this contest was started, and it's like more than 15 years, if I remember right, more than 15 years, yes.
Wow.
They've had more than 40,000 ideas. And I went through the list. I just looked at it last year, what was there, and there's all these years has been new ideas coming up. And some are fantastic. So what we can do, knowing that the kids they're not being pulled down by the infrastructure of a company or the structure or hierarchy or by the colleagues, they're just innocent. They want to have a good life, and they write down something which comes to their mind. So I believe that this time which we have today gives us an opportunity also, rather than focusing on the backwards, looking at what did I do wrong when I was young. Let's see, what would you like to do different when you get older, or when you are, as you are growing now, my child, or the young people of our societies, because they are the ones that will be creating new ideas. They know they have these gizmos, they have the phones, which we didn't have when we were kids. They have a lot of things, but the ideas which are coming from them are coming more, it's not of the same kind. I saw that there's just a different kind of ideas.
And that uniqueness is very special, and I think you're onto something. And we could certainly take a learning lesson from perhaps these competitions that you've been doing there in Iceland for our youngsters here in the United States. And it's something that certainly I, as an educator, we're going to look into that, because I think there's some real interest how we can connect our young generation to be able to have this free-flowing process, rather than what I think has become, even within the space of education, a very structured. Everything's about rules, regulations, procedures, check off the box.
Yeah.
And all sometimes with good intentions, but I think it really has created a society that then when they grow up, as we did, we are handcuffed to some degree by, as adults, what we were indoctrinated as youngsters, which are rules, regulations, check off the box, don't take risk, don't go too far outside the edges. But yet we all are looking for ways in which we can create this creativity ecosystem And now we face a challenge as a human society as a whole, and perhaps it's time to look at new ways that we dismantle some of these rules and regulations and look at checking off the boxes. Is that really important? Or is it more important to foster creativity and worry about checking off boxes after you have created some creativity that now has to be executed upon or needs to get to the next level, rather than the inverse of actually creating the boxes first and then saying, go and try to have creativity as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd like to turn now to what you teach in your consulting practice, and I, again, to be respectful to the companies you represent, but
yes,
perhaps you can correct me that there's 6 points that you do provide. Can you briefly describe these 6 points to us?
Yes.
And in what sort of environment are you called upon by, my understanding is governments, NGOs, major corporations with household names that we would know. But can you give us some ideas of what you do with these 6 points and maybe just highlight each one briefly for us?
Yes. Over the last 20 years, I have been able to meet people in all of the industries in Iceland. And we have, in most cases, we have sat down and we've been looking at what is today, what do we have, what technology has been created, and we're putting together the materials, connecting the boxes. Yeah, because that's how I grew up coming into my field of, IT industry has been my field for a long time. And some years back, now from this point, I began asking different questions, not having that process exactly in mind, but it became more clear that there is a process to go through, if you like. And to begin with, rather than focusing on what do you have, what is my presence today, which is the first point, presence. I ask questions, and it can be at all the levels you can find in a hierarchy. It can be the person who is actually giving you the coffee at the entry of the office. They have something more to share than just this coffee. We all have. So we look at the potential. Is there a potential which you have not discovered yet? Like we talked about the children. They see the potential. They do not have there's no strings attached. There's no one holding them back in most cases. So potential is where I begin. And then power, rather than talking about power from power as we know power, I'm a powerful person, I have this, I can decide everything. No, resources. And being responsible with those resources. So how are you responsible with those resources? Are you wasting your resources, or are you not looking around and where do we have around us someone who can provide solutions or services or assist, be a part of a project which you haven't asked to or haven't offered them to be part of it because of we do not, if it's trust or if it's what is holding you back. There can be many things. And I mean, like this has been a talk which I've had with I would say all of them are my mentors up till now. I met so many people who are great mentors and been fortunate to do that in the cargo industry, in the travel industry. I can mention worked with the biggest airline here in Iceland, Icelandair, and biggest cargo company, but also the small firms. There are thousands of companies that make our society, that not only the big ones, and they are doing fantastic work, doing well. They're having an impact on the culture, impact on the quality of our lives, but they're not mentioned on the news as often, or they're not as big part of the total GDP of the country, but they're still making, having an impact. They're part of us, yes. So we have gone through rather than focusing on presence, we go to the potential, then the power. And after the power, I like to talk about, if you were to look at your potential, what would be your priorities? How would you prioritize what you have? And they would make a list of things, what would be most important, and we would talk about how can you use the resources to get to that point, yes, where you want to. And the question, which is sometimes if you ask a person, what do you do? They share with you all the tasks they do, all the chores, all the responsibilities, all the what they're told to do by the companies they work for. But when you ask them, what would be best to do based on the passion which this company has? What is internally? What makes you drive? What makes what's your fuel to go through the day, through the hardship when you're building up the company? And how can you increase the passion which your employees or which your associates have? How do you share it? Yeah. How do you encourage each other to be passionate at your work? That's a really important matter. And a company which has all the structure, all the revenue flow, and the clients are coming, yes, but no passion, I would say it's not benefit for the society. It's just benefit from the owners, yes, of course. And they're fulfilling some need, but what are we if we do not have passion? Huh. That's my belief, my personal belief. Okay, and then one element which is also quite important, the progress. Well, what do you do? And not only focusing on what actions you take towards better outcome with quality, or to increase the revenue or decrease the cost. It's just, how do you do what you do? How do you work internally together? How do you share information? And integrating technology into all this, and looking at it from, is it a positive flow or is it a negative? Who is in charge of the flow? How do you share your information? When do you do it, and so on? Yeah. And the last, I would say, which is like the most important thing in this whole thing that I do, is just listening. It's listening to the people I'm with. And that's the main thing which I like. I like that the most right now. And I'm actually loving it. When I have a meeting today, I had a meeting this morning with dozens of people, and they were all listening. Not that they were listening to me, but we were able to focus on one voice. There was a voice talking, and we just listened. And it was not just the manager. I believe this will change the culture, and we will be going through an era where we must see the potential. We have to believe that this is not the end. This is the beginning of something much, much greater, and just a new part of being a human on Earth. So we have to align each other to have a different kind of view on what's our vision. Create a new vision, and not let the old strings hold us back. Not
each of these are so important, and
yeah.
And I know that you and I have had many hours together there in Iceland discussing this on the tundra on the way to a glacier expedition. One of the things with the listening, that caught my attention, and another colleague that well that was with us, is this listening that we look at in mediation culture called active listening, and we use it with the concept of conflict resolution. And one of the things I proffered to you is the fact of these 6 points. Perhaps the 7th point to explore is conflict, and how conflict can play a part or a role in the overall arch that you've created in what I'll call the moments consulting process of really extracting the best of each and every one of our spirits, yeah? In order to, at the end of the day, maximize, if we look at from a business perspective, process efficiency of the culture. So not process efficiency in the sense of how can we do something more innovative. That's one paradigm or one result, yeah? but rather the process efficiency and maximization of a more effective culture that ultimately leads to a better environment for the individual as well as for the company.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes.
So I want to thank you. Just, for those that are interested in learning more about what you do and your consulting practice, can you provide your name of your company and your email? And we'll certainly, for those that may want to contact you, that would be a great way for them to continue a further dialogue, or if there's a company that's looking for some thought leadership or consulting because they're interested themselves in trying to uplift their culture or to assist their individual employees with this very challenging environment that we are not only in, but we're facing new challenges every moment and every day. Unfortunately, no one has a crystal ball and can tell us where we will be when we come out. The only thing we do know is that at least for the history of humanity, we survive. We are survivors as human species on this planet. So I do believe strongly that we will come out of this. But what is the name of your email and your information that we can provide, or your website would be best?
Yeah, it's moment.is. Moment.is.
Great.
So that would be the best. Contact me.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing this experience with us today. We could have, I think, a discussion that goes on for many hours on many different points of not only the way that you view the world, but what's going on in Iceland. It's a really interesting country, and it's filled with so much richness, both in history and in its people. I find it to be one of the most a beacon of light in a very complex world. And I want to thank you for also sharing your consulting paradigm with us. For those that may perhaps be wanting to look at unique and innovative ways to improve their communication with their colleagues, their peers, their employees, management, especially in a time right now where communication is limited only to the level of how we can share our technology with one another. But I believe what you said is very important. As much as it's limited, it also is giving us a chance to really explore new ways of communicating, which are much more deeper. That vulnerability, using vulnerability in a much more positive fashion to really explore who we are, not only as individuals, but individuals within the ecosystem within which we live.
Yes.
So thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
All right, and my prayers and my thoughts are with you and your family, and may everyone stay protected over there.
Thank you so much, David.
Take care now.